Welcome to the Encore Audio Archives YouTube channel. I'm Taper Dave, and this is my channel. I've uploaded hundreds of talks here that I've recorded at meetings in West LA, and I've also recorded conventions starting in 2013. I've got a bunch of those up. And Walt and Mary Murray, the original owners of Encore Audio Archives, started the company in the 80s, and Walt recorded Joe and Charlie's and a bunch of stuff down in Vista, California. My sobriety date is June 20th of 1994. I hope you find something you like, so please like and subscribe to my channel and comment down below. If you want to hear something that I don't have or that you don't see, I'll see that I get it. Anyways, take care and have a great day if you want to.
Hello, my name is Skip and I'm an alcoholic. And I'd like to thank Patty for asking me to come out and speak. I've never met Patty, don't know Patty. I thought it was a different Patty. You know, thanks, Patty. I'm gonna have a little drink of this Aqua Fiender water. I guess I'm like a water fiend now. Anyhow, so I'm an alcoholic, and if you're sitting in this room, you're probably an alcoholic too. And if you're new here tonight, welcome. You know, we're happy to have you here. You're one of us. We're one of you. And I really hope you stick around. You know, it's really important that if you come here and you decide that, you know, perhaps you drink too much and you need to do something about it, that maybe this is a solution for you. You know, I really like AA, and that's a big difference than when I got here. I wasn't real stoked to be here to begin with. In fact, I wasn't even planning to be here. No, I wasn't. I wasn't planning for this stuff. You know, I'm gonna try not to swear because they're taping, and that's really hard for me too. I like colorful language. Yeah. But anyway, I also drank and used drugs for a long time. I put in 30 years between alcohol and hard narcotics, and to tell you the truth, I really had a good time. You know. No, I'm not. You know why? You know why? You know, I can't use that word. Why? God, it's really hard to, you know, like to not want. I want to utilize certain sayings, but anyway, yeah, I just, you know, like the first 20 years was pretty much fun. You know, like had a good time. The next 5 years weren't so good, and the last 5 years just was living hell. And you know, it's just the last 5 years were, you know, got me here. I don't really, the other 25 years really didn't have much to do with me getting here at all. Right. So, you know, it's interesting, like I grew up here in Venice, and I was actually born in Hollywood and grew up here in Venice, and the other day, I work on surfboards for a living, and so most of the time, like if you see me at night, I always have really nice clothes on, they're really clean. If you see me in the day, I look like pig pen, you know what I mean? It's like I have filth all over me everywhere, fiberglass dust, and I actually talk to people like I'm wearing a suit. You know, because that's just myself, my presence of myself is that I don't care how filthy I am, you're handing me something to make a living with, and I'm going to be upfront with you about that. So, but I had this kid come in the other day, and he had this surfboard, and it was horrible, it was thrashed, and he goes, oh, you know my father Bernard? And I went, yeah. I go, you look just like your dad. You know, trouble. So he goes, yeah. So anyway, he convinced me that since, you know, he's a Venice guy and I was a Venice guy, they really need to do this board for a lot less money, and, you know, he got over. And so, but I asked him, I go, did your dad hand me those pictures from us in Mexico when we were kids? And he goes, yeah, it's really weird you should mention that. You know, he's just getting them blown up now. I went, oh, okay. So he goes, I'll bring you one. So about 2 days later, he shows up, and here's this picture, and I'm like 14, maybe 15 years old, and all the guys except for one other guy in the picture, you know, are a little older, and we snuck across the border and went to Ensenada. And those days it was just a dirt road, and it was like, you know, really, and there we are. I'm in Husong's. And I know it's Husong's because there's this big thing sign that says Husong's Cantina and Yacht Club. And I didn't own a boat, so I was there for the cantina part. And I got this, like, I'm 14 or 15, and I have the biggest smile on my face, and I have like a cigarette in one hand and a shooter of tequila in the other. And right away, you should have known that I was on the road to hell. I mean, it's like, that was like the, you know, that was like the picture of like the guy at the Olympics in the starting blocks. You know, like, I was poised and ready to run. And I gotta say, I had a huge attraction with that border. You know, once I realized what was below the border, and I could get there and stuff, man, it was all over. You know what I mean? It's like, I learned how to jump that border and get down there and get the stuff I needed and get back with it, and you know, did a lot of things that were illegal. Yeah, okay, they were illegal. So you know, but I really, you know, liked that lifestyle. And what was odd is that I always had a job too. You know, like my mother was like, you know, like all Catholics, your mother is a saint. Okay, there's a Virgin Mary, and your mom's just a little off center of that, and she was a great woman, and she really, you know, suffered for having me as a child, and you know, I'm sure there's a place reserved in hell for me for that too, but you know, maybe if I do enough good things, then it'll work out, but you know, so you know, like I just always worked, but I always just needed to make a little more. You know, it wasn't, because I was convinced that, like, all my problems were based on I didn't have anything. You know, and it was weird because I was a pretty good surfer, and through surfing, you know, like I got to meet all these guys who were really wealthy. You know, so they would take me around and stuff, and I sort of became like a professional friend, and you know, and they would do this, you know, they would take me every place with them, you know, and a lot of these guys were older guys, like I'd be like 15, these guys would be in their 20s, and they'd be just rolling me every place with them, you know, and, because I was good at certain things like stealing and lying and cheating, and, like, you know, you realize that we used to be free gas in California. Like, I can tell you this now because it doesn't operate anymore, but, you know, the gas pumps, they had a glass on the front, and the numbers would roll. And if you just pushed that glass, the numbers would stop, but the gas would keep flowing. So I'm sure I owe immense of Standard Oil too, you know. But, you know, and that's just one of the things. I mean, it's like, for me, I swear to God to you, and the hardest thing for me today is I still see $200 a day laying around the street every place I go. And, you know, like I can't act on it, just like I can't use that language here because you're taping. But you know, I have to refrain from that kind of stuff, and so you know, I would go on these trips, and I'd go on these surf trips and stuff, and I was a pretty good athlete, and I got to high school, and they wanted me to play football, and I had no intention of doing that, and so like this coach just kept going, you know, I went no, and they just didn't understand that, like, even in those days, my will was my will. You know, I operated on my sense of purpose, and I didn't care what you thought. So my alternative to, like, not playing football was telling my mom, you know, these friends of mine are going to Hawaii here in a couple of weeks, so I'm getting on this plane with them. And she went like, oh, okay, fine, you know, like, you know, I'm a 15-year-old kid, and I'm leaving home to go to Hawaii. And I worked at this liquor store called Trading Post Liquors down here on Main Street. And the address of the place actually is 1313 Main, which should have been another indication, you know, that was an unlucky spot for me. But the guy who owned it was a really nice man and stuff, and he kept going, why do you want to go to Hawaii? Why do you want to go to Hawaii? And I go, because I want to go to Hawaii. So the day before I was going to get on the plane, the guy calls me over and goes, hey, you know, like, I want to talk to you and stuff, and oh, great, you know. So he handed me a couple $100, told me to have an adventure. you know, and that's the kind of stuff that happened for me, you know, like I'm the kind of person that if you give me lemons, I make lemonade, you know what I mean? And I've been really fortunate. I mean, I'm sober today based on this kind of luck, okay, or stupidity, or you want to call it. But you know, like you know, went to Hawaii, did this stuff, came back, finished school, and became a merchant seaman. And once again, I was like jumping borders. Only this time I was like all over the world. And I made a bunch of money and started a business because I couldn't get a job. You know, no, that's true. Like no one would hire me, and so me and this other guy started this. It's like I was 21, and this guy was like 19, and we both had a bunch of cash from doing things, and decided to start the surfboard factory because no one would hire him either because he was this like kind of crazy little Chinese guy and stuff, and a really brilliant craftsman and stuff. So we just like got together and we rented a building in West Los Angeles and immediately went out and hit every construction site in the city to build that factory, you know. And I just essentially stole the factory in a couple of days, and it's so bizarre, you know. You'd have this truckload with so much stuff that you had to put a guy on the front end to sit down at the counter and wait it because you hit a bump and the wheels come off the ground. And so we do that and stuff, and the whole time I'm just loaded. I mean, I'm high as shit stealing this stuff, you know, like I'm smoking weed. You know, like here I'm smoking this joint, you know, drinking this beer and stealing from construction sites at 3 o'clock in the morning. And, you know, so we just did that and got it going, and we got successful, and we had actually this like kind of real cult thing going on Main Street, and then got to the point where like, you know, because of drugs and alcohol, I lost everything. And like on one day, I was like on Main Street with a store and a surfboard factory, and the next day I was back in Hawaii on food stamps. You know, it just went that quick. You know, drugs and alcohol, boom. You know, like drugs, alcohol, unwanted pregnancies, the cops, you know, like a whole bunch of stuff. But all drugs and alcohol related, gone. You know, gone in 60 seconds. So I come back from Hawaii a few years later with my heroin addict girlfriend, and you know, because she needed to clean up, and you know, and so I got back here and stuff, and then she bailed and things, and I sat around and drank for about 6 months on the couch, and decided to get a job one day. So I went to one of those manpower places, and they put me on a injection molding machine that Paper made, and like they wouldn't let you touch the machine; you just had to watch it, you know. So like, so I got bored, and I would take these like quarters, and I started tapping out rings in my spare time, you know, like where you just keep hitting with a hammer. If you take the, anyways, it's not important to know how to make a ring out of a quarter, but so, you know, I did that and stuff, and kind of got back together again, and because I started like, I realized that like I started to need to make some money, so I started dealing again and stuff, and pretty soon I was, you know, back on the High Line, and then I got this job at this like surfboard factory, and I started making skateboards again, and all of a sudden it's like I was rolling again, you know, like I had this like other business, and you know, and then I went into this thing called licensing, and they were paying me like this huge sum of money every month to be alive, and naturally I was successful, so I immediately started getting really high all the time, and really dealing a lot, because since I didn't really have to work anymore, I really needed to be occupied, you know. And so like you have these bricks and shit, and you can just like sit around and, you know, and I tell people, man, I personally helped the Lakers win every championship in the 80s. And the reason I know this is because I sat in front of that TV set every night with a whole bunch of blow and some Miller long necks and focused on magic shooting. And I swear, and I want to apologize now, because I've been sober all this time that they haven't won a championship up until this year. They finally got the program. Anyhow, so I got, you know, like I was sitting around one night, and I have this goddaughter. Well, actually, okay, in '89, like just before Thanksgiving, I have this goddaughter. She's a beautiful child, you know. She's like 4 or 5 at the time, and just a kid was scared to death of me, you know, just absolutely in fear because the bear would be coming into her house, you know, like this drunken swine would be showing up on her doorstep to eat Thanksgiving. And so, and why, you know, on this day, I cannot figure out why my friend, maybe this kid's godfather, you know what I mean? He saw, him and his wife, and their insanity saw something in me that I didn't see in me, you know. And they were betting kind of that I was going to just get straightened out down the line, I guess. But this kid, you know, like, it just ate at me. You know, it's like there's one horrible little thing that you can, bothers you, you know, and this bothered me. This kid didn't respond to me, you know. So I went, well, maybe if I don't drink for a couple of days, like, it'll be okay. So I didn't drink for about 3 days before Thanksgiving, and the kid just, like, said something to me, and it made me kind of feel better. And so then I stayed dry until through Christmas, and, you know, got her presents and stuff, and she felt, you know, she's a little more responsive. And then, like, you know, New Year's, I figured I'd get loaded on New Year's, and I got sick, got the flu or something, and didn't really feel like drinking and using. And my birthday was going to be a few days later after that, and I didn't really, something came up, and so I got all the way into like January of like 1990, and I was going to get loaded. You know, it's like, fuck that. It was a bad day. Can you edit that? Anyway.
Just go with it.
Okay. So, anyway, it was a bad day, and I was so embarrassed. Anyhow, so it was a bad day, and I was gonna get loaded, and I went to pick up the phone, and it rang. It was this guy who I've been giving skateboards to since he was a little kid. His name is Chris, and he goes, "You have any skateboards?" Da da da. And he was gonna get over, you know. And I went, yeah, sure. And he goes, and I went, something, I don't know what possessed me. I don't know, to this day I don't know why, but I asked this like really stupid question, or just in passing. I went, I heard you were going to some of them meetings. And he went, I'm coming to get you, and the phone went dead. And I went, what does he mean, coming to get me? I'm not going anyplace. The Lakers are on. You know, this is an important series, man. You know, and you know, he came, this pounding on my front door, and I still have the phone in my hand. I went, come on in. And it's, you know, it's January. It's January, right? And I'm standing around a pair of trunks and like a t-shirt, and I'm sweating profusely. You know, it's like it's only about 46 degrees outside, and my body temperature, the ability to, you know, the thermostat in my body had changed radically, let's just say. And so he goes, come on, you're done. You know. And I went, yeah, okay, fine. I got in the car and I've been here ever since, you know. Now, I'd like to say that it was a bed of roses and it was a good deal. It wasn't. Okay. I mean, now it's a good deal. You know, like, now it's a great deal. But that particular point in time wasn't good. And there was a meeting on Wednesday night. It used to be over here in Santa Monica. And then it moved over to Second and Hill. But at the time it was over there. And I was in this thing, and I like this meeting because it had these poles that were cold, that I could lay my head against them. You know, and that's the only reason I went, because I got a place for my head. And but there was this woman there, and she was a secretary, and she, you know, I thought she was kind of a babe and stuff. So, you know, I rolled on her. You know, like I walked on, hey, what's happening? You know. And I realized like I'm pretty cute now, but back then I wasn't so cute. You know, I was like sort of like Jabba, you know, like. And so I went, hey, what are you doing? You know, you need some help? And you know, and she looked at me, right? Just looked me dead in the eye and went, listen, asshole. And it was amazing because she actually knew my name. And she goes, grab this box and bring it back next week, okay? I went, yeah, sure. You know, well, you know, one thing about me, you gotta understand, I'm persistent, you know. If I'm gonna try and get over, I'm gonna try and get over, you know. So I figure I could wait a week, you know. She's playing hard to get or something. So, you know, and her name's Debbie O, and her and I to this day are still like great friends. And she's like one of the best friends I ever had. At the time, it was the beginning of like her and I meeting each other and stuff. And she actually knew me years before, but she didn't bring that up at the time. You know what I mean? So I came back and stuff, and I started bringing this, and every week she'd just go, you know, like, and Skip brought the box, and people would applaud. And it was like I got this like sense of validation. I started coming because I bought the box, you know. So, and then she goes, you know, like, she goes, hey, listen, there's going to be this party. I want you to come to this party. And I'd never been any place socially where I wasn't under the influence. So I went, party? You know, like, oh, man, this is like going to be a horrifying scene, you know. And so I go and stuff, and there's this guy named Mike was having it. It's like a barbecue. And there are all these people, these strange AA people, you know, and they're all laughing and having a good time and stuff. And I was feeling really uncomfortable. This guy, Mike, who owned the place, walked up to me and goes, come here a second. I went, yeah. He goes, you're kind of heavy, huh? And I went, yeah. And he goes, that means you know how to eat, right? And I go, man, my favorite thing, grab a plate, skip, you know what I mean? Or it's catered. I'm there. That's the two things I like to hear most. Grab a plate, skip, it's catered, or here's a check. You know. So he goes, I'm having some trouble with these like burgers and stuff. Do you think you could help me? I went, yeah, sure. So I spent the entire day like flipping burgers, and I met every person in that party. And that's how sneaky. If you're new here, you may not listen to some of these parts, okay? But these AA people, as giving and stuff as they're damn sneaky. You know what I mean? They'll make you have a good time no matter what. I mean, they have devious ways of like taking your worst day and making it great. You know what I mean? They'll do this underhanded, you know what I mean? They might be rigorous honesty, but like there's this line that they're pushing, okay? that is as close to bending as any lawyer can get to. And so, you know, that's how it started for me. You know, like people took me literally, but there was Debbie, and there was this lady Avery, and there was this other woman named Penny, and Penny we don't know what happened to, but Avery and Debbie are both still here, so 2 out of 3 ain't bad, you know. Although they always, you know, wonder what happened to the one who's lost. You know, at least I do. You know, because she was a significant part of me staying alive, and that's really important. You know, like this program is about you living and having a life, and giving you the tools with which to function in society on a daily basis. And I didn't have any of those tools. You know, I know how to deal drugs. You know what I mean? I knew the metric system before anybody. You know. You know what I mean? And I could eyeball it for you too and be right on if you wanted. Well, maybe a little light, but you know. You know. So, you know, but it's like I got here and I found like just a whole other existence. You know, people were like kind to me when they really had no need to be. People loved me unconditionally when I felt that I was unlovable. You know, I had miraculous things happen. You know, truly miraculous things, like the skateboard licensing thing ended, okay? And I happened to live in the same building that my mom lived in. And it was rent controlled, and I'd moved out of this place in Topanga and moved into Santa Monica for the skateboard situation because it was cheap. Anyway, within, you know, bought this truck, and because I got in this automobile accident after I was 6 months sober, and I had to buy this truck because the other one was totaled, and you know, all of a sudden I had these bills, and the skateboard licensing thing came to an end, right? Well, I went, okay, I can ride that out. And then they Ellis'd the building I lived in, which means the guy went out of the rental business. So both my mother and myself, who lived in this building, everything doubled, and she was old and she was losing her ability to understand who I was, you know. And so I had to find a place for her to live and to find a place for me to live and move us both. And all of a sudden, I had no income. So I had to go to a guy that, like, when he was a kid, he worked for me. And I had to ask him for a job. You know, I had to, like humble myself and go, look, like, I'm willing to do what it takes. And he goes, well, look, I got 2 jobs here. One, you can, like, clean the factory. Or 2, like, I get a couple of these surfboard repairs that come in about once a week, you know. So I went, well, I'll sweep the factory, repair, I don't care. Whatever you want me to do is fine. So I started doing that. And, you know, in 10 years, I've built up, like, this, like, you know, pretty good-sized surfboard repair business where it takes care of every bill I have and stuff. And I go to Hawaii for a month every year. But I was willing to, you know, like, be honest and go, hey, look, man, I'm essentially, like, screwed. You know, and willing to go back, you know, to square one. And as a result of that, other things opened up for me. I got to interact with people on a daily basis. You know, like, I had to deal with the public. And when I had the store on Main Street, I was notorious for, like, okay, this was my sales technique. I would lock the door and people would knock on the door and I would go, what do you want? And they go, I want to come in. And I go, do you have money? And they go, yeah. I go, show me the money, you know, before the movie. Show me that money. And they'd show me the money. Okay, come in. I go, what do you want to buy? And people, I was such a jerk that people would spend huge amounts of money in my store to prove that they could buy something, which is a kind of reverse sales technique. And so I had to learn that I actually had to be, you know, willing to listen to a person that was bringing me something to fix and not cheat them. You know, I had to be honest about my dealings with them stuff and commit to doing stuff on time and, you know, just a whole bunch of tools I never had before. So, you know, that, you know, I was doing that, and as a result of that, I was fixing these boards for this guy one day, and he went, like, I knew the guy for years, and he was the 2nd unit director on Baywatch, and he went, do you want to come down and be an extra? You know, and I went, what do you mean? He goes, well, just come down and stand in the back. It's $85 on lunch. See, it was catered, so he had me. Right, a check and a plate. So I went, sure, you know. So I went down, did that, and I went down to go do this, and this, like, person who's the director looked at me and went, like, come here a second, you know. And so then they threw these other 2 actors out of the scene and put me in, and I kind of got in the Screen Actors Guild as a result of some other stuff later on. And in the last 2 years, I kind of, you know, did a bunch of little commercials work and stuff and extra work and things, and it was really good extra money, and it gave me, like, a little more sense of financial security, along with, like, I mean, I work 7 days a week right now, okay? I know it sounds completely insane, but I even work today, you know, like, I mean, I work 7 days a week, surfboard season, got to work. You know, it's just a reality. Put the head down, go to work. It's like being a field hand. Crops in the field, got to pick it. But, you know, I would have never done that if I hadn't got sober. You know, everything I am today and everything I have today is a direct result of me sitting in these seats and taking direction. Now, if you're new here, I'm going to just give you some advice, okay? Like, I know they tell you this is a suggested program, but I'm telling you straight out. I don't care what they tell you. If you're in that seat, if you're sitting in that seat tonight and you're new, don't let anybody move you out of that seat. That's your seat. You earn that seat, you stay in that seat, okay? Keep your mouth shut and stay in that seat. Right? You have no opinion. Anything that you think you know, you don't know. But stay in that seat, right? There's a bunch of drama and stuff here. Great. Just disregard that, stay in the seat. I mean, you know, it's like, It's like, you ever see that movie Apocalypse Now? Important thing in that thing, the guy tells the guy, don't get out of the boat. Right? Every guy got out of the boat except for the surfer on acid died. Right? You look at that movie, every person but the surfer on acid got out of the boat, they got killed. Right? It's just like sobriety. Don't get out of the boat, don't get out of the seat. You know what I mean? You know, I owe so much to the people in these rooms, I can't even begin to pay it back. Not even, my debt to sobriety is so huge, I can't even begin to tell you. You know, we live in a very strange world in troubled times, okay? And me personally, I need some sanity in my existence. I need a space where I can go and feel comfortable, you know? And there are very few places like that in the world, and this is one of them. You know, if you ask me if I believe in God, I tell you straight out, yes. I absolutely believe there is a God. I'm living proof there is a God, because I should be dead. I've gone, you know, like, I could tell you like a lot of heavy stories of stuff I did, and, you know, that would only, you know, serve to, in some ways, like, emphasize that I should be not with us. But the real point is that I am here. The real point of this drill is the fact that, like, I do love being here, you know. I've met the craziest people in these rooms, you know. I mean, I love insanity, you know, like I have to say, you know, insanity for me is like the, you know, like, I love chaos, you know. It's like, I love the idea of being in the center of something that's just a complete nightmare and blasting through the end of it unscathed, you know. That to me is, I get off on that kind of stuff. And so, you know, I got in these rooms, and there are people that did things that scared me. You know, these people in these rooms that scare the hell out of me. They're so insane, you know. And I like that. You know, I mean, I like it because I know that, like, you know, I had one sponsor, man. He was like this little Jewish guy. He was like just a full teddy bear. I go, what'd you used to do? He goes, oh, well, I used to like hook up in these hotels and deal heroin out of them for about a couple of weeks at a time. I go, yeah. He goes, then I'd take a handgun and rob the guy on the way out and not pay the bill. I looked at this guy and went, you're kidding. And he went, no. You know, what did you know? Oh, multimillionaire. Really? How'd that happen? Got sober. You know, there's like, you know, was like, you know, it's like, okay. I can totally understand that, you know, because like the, you know, the wheels turn over and stuff will happen. And it's like, you know, like, to me, there's three states of existence, right? There's a time when everything's going wrong and you don't think it's ever going to end, okay? There's a time when everything's going right and you don't ever want it to end, and there's a time in the center where nothing's happening. And I like being in the center part really a lot. You know what I mean? That's where I like to be at today. It's like where stuff's just, you know, it's like tapioca. You know what I mean? It's just like, you know, it's bland. It's not hurting me. I'm not, you know, like I'm just there. You know what I mean? And that's just fundamentally how I view stuff. You know, again, if you're new, don't get out of the boat. Okay, stay here, stay with us, you know, save your own life, let other people help you save your life, you know, things will change, you know, like one of the things that's interesting is like a non-decision is a decision, like that's something I didn't really realize, you know, if you don't make a decision, like the decision will be made for you, something will happen, life goes on, you know, the stuff's always turning over, always turning over, always turning over, you can't stop the train. You know, the train keeps moving. You know, the only problem is at some point you got to pay for that ticket on the train. And how you pay for that ticket is up to you. You can, you know, like you can go through this drill and go through these 12 steps. You know, if you don't believe in God, what can it hurt? You know what I mean? How could something that doesn't exist hurt you if you don't believe in it, right? You know, so like if you don't have a problem developing a higher power, just fake it. You know, you've been lying most of your life. Why not? Right? Might as well, you know, like, okay, believe in God, you know. Believe in God, I believe in God, you know. Who knows? Maybe this higher power would sneak up on you, you know. Anyway, I guess I'm pretty much done. And in conclusion, I'd just like to thank Patty again for having me come out as a total stranger. And thank you very much.
I think we got a great talk going on here. Thanks for watching the channel. Taper Dave here. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Okay, this is how I prepare my drone for launching. I like to do it inside the cab of my truck so I'm not standing outside in the weather. To install the joysticks for control, up and down, right and left, powered on. I have an Android phone that I use to connect it to the drone with, and it's actually controlled through the iPhone, through an app. Oops, wrong way. It's actually controlled through the iPhone, or through this Android phone, through the app. It's actually controlled through the Android phone, through an app, and you connect it through this short connection right here.
Remote control connected.
Remote control is connected. So I pull out the drone. I have to extend the legs. Long legs extended first, then the short legs. Remove the gimbal protector. Set that aside, then power it on one short burst and one long burst. I lay it down. So I have to go to calibrate. So the drone's not connected yet. It shows you here as this drone gets disconnected, even though the remote's powered on. So the drone has to establish it's connected. So I go into the app to calibration mode. First I'll calibrate the remote controller. Start calibration. Out, in, out, in, up, down. And then this little wheel is to control the gimbal. So it's calibrated. Go to gimbal calibration, start calibration, and then it calibrates the gimbal. I don't know if that shows up. The gimbal's moving all over the place. Changes, you can see it on the video. And I'm calibrated to take off. It's acquired 7 satellites at the moment. There are 26 satellites up in the sky, which it has to acquire before you can take off. So it's connected. It's got enough satellites. This is white. I can go to press this little arrow button, swipe right to take off, and it would start the motors if I slid this to the right. But I'll wait till I get outside. Don't want to do it inside.